This episode of The Unstarving Musician is sponsored by Liner Notes. Want to learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry pros I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician? Sign up for Liner Notes, my curated email newsletter where I share the best insights and knowledge gems from these conversations, some of which have been featured here on the podcast. From marketing to songwriting to touring and sync licensing, you'll get actionable tips delivered straight to your inbox every 2 weeks. Liner Notes Insider, the deep dive edition, will feature exclusive deep dives, detailed case studies, and premium content that goes beyond the podcast interviews. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com/liner notes. It's free to get started, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Welcome to another episode. I am your host, Robonzo, and this is The Unstarving Musician, where I have conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals about the marketing, business, and creative aspects of music and the music business so that you and I can better understand all the pieces of the music business and creativity in general, that is, that help us make more music and more money doing it. How are you? Where are you? And what are you wearing? My guest for this episode is Tracee Perrin, who joined me from Nashville in this conversation. Tracee is a repeat offender on the podcast. She and I had a conversation back in January of 2024, for which there will be a link in the show notes. Since then, she's been busy with several exciting projects, including her newish EP called The Clearing and a new single called Seasons Change, a collaboration with Lauren Anderson, also in Nashville. In this conversation, Tracee and I discuss her ongoing transition to life in Nashville, having moved there from LA some 8 years ago. We also discuss her collaboration with Lauren Anderson, which included a tour, and how merch sales made a significant financial difference during that tour. We also talk about practical strategies for staying healthy on the road, something I've been focused on in Liner Notes Insider, so that was exciting, and the art of music collaboration. Tracee also shared how her experience in marriage has surprisingly prepared her for artistic partnerships, and we explore the theme behind Seasons Change, which is embracing life's inevitable challenges while pursuing something better for yourself. We also touch on what scares her these days, with Tracee revealing that not meeting her potential is one of her big fears. So whether you're an independent musician looking for touring tips, collaboration insights, or just some inspiration for your creative journey, this conversation has something valuable for you. You can find more about Tracee at traceeperrinmusic.com, and that's Tracee. I'm going to spell it. No, you better look at the show notes. And if you want to hear our previous conversation, check out episode 295, where we discussed her single Poison in the Water, Nashville's population explosion, self-care for vocalists, musical theater, and her 2024 release plans at that time. And now, ladies, gents, earthlings, here's me speaking with the talented Tracee Perrin. I like your fancy-looking microphone.
I know, it's a new one I'm trying out. I don't know if this is going to work out.
Trying it out on me, huh?
I was, yeah.
It looks good. It looks fancy. What kind is it?
It is a Samson a condenser mic, a USB condenser mic.
Okay. Man, those things can be so sensitive too, but that's cool.
Is it sounding okay on your end?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I can hear you. I think it's going to work.
I got it. There's a store here called McKay's, and it's like a buy, sell, trade bookstore, electronics, stuff like that, CDs, records, and all of that. And I think it's like a $250 mic. I got it for like $30, brand new.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
I looked around like, does anyone else, is this right? Is this wrong? Does anyone else see this? I'm just going to keep it to myself,
Yeah.
Just lucked out, yeah.
That's great. Wow. Are you in Nashville today?
I am, yes.
How long have you lived there now?
It'll be 11 years in this June.
11 years. Do you still get back to LA?
Not very often. We get back to LA about once a year, but we'd like to start increasing that a little bit. It's just hard to find the right chunk of time where my husband, son, and I can all go, and visit. So.
I was looking at my notes. I thought, God, it seems like so much longer ago, but we last spoke on January 4th of last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what was really making me feel like, gosh, it seemed like it was so much longer. So I'm like, I forgot we're in like 2025.
I know. Yes, it seems like a whole different world in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So,
When did you release your EP? I knew you had,
yeah.
uh, forgetting the name of the song, The Poison in the Water and
Oh,
the,
Poison in the Water. Yes. I had the
yes.
single out when we spoke last, or was just about to come out, one or the other. So the EP, I released the EP March 8th of 2024. So it's
Okay.
been just over a year. Um, yeah, so it's flown by for sure. It just sort of was reflecting on that because March 8th is also my birthday. And it just kind of like, I feel like it flew by for sure.
Wow, that's cool. I
Yeah.
saw you had a birthday not too long ago. I thought it was the 10th, but it's the 8th, huh?
It's
Was
the
the
8th.
8th.
I had a show on the 10th, a
Mm.
big show on the 10th. That was sort of, I turned into kind of like my birthday celebration.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, the EP sounds great. Really
thank
nice.
you.
I checked out your single too. Super nice. How
Thank you.
how did you meet Lauren?
Lauren and I met, so I do real estate as one of my day jobs. And I've done that for to be 10 years this July. And so Lauren and I happen to be agents at the same real estate brokerage maybe 6 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, 2018-ish. So we met each other initially then, although we didn't really connect on a deeper level. We kind of knew we both did music in some capacity. She was certainly doing a lot more at the time than I was. But then fast forward years later, kind of, I think about 2022 or so, we just kept randomly seeing each other at different either like music events or things around and just sort of recognized each other a bit. And then finally we're just like, why don't we just have lunch? We seem to be running in the same circles in different ways, and let's just sit down and have lunch and get to know each other a little more. Yeah, and so that's kind of how we started. We just kind of hit it off really well. We get along so well, and we have a good time together.
Mhm.
We laugh a lot together, so it's been a good treasure being her friend and her
That's nice.
collaborator. Yeah.
It just occurred to me when you're going about life in Nashville and you have like coworkers and stuff that, maybe half of them are musicians in Nashville.
It's a pretty sure bet. Somebody's gonna, yeah, a good chunk of people. So yeah.
That's funny. So I meant to ask you, like, how it's been a year. I know Nashville's growing like a weed, but how are you liking it?
Yeah, it's been Nashville or
Mm-hmm.
DP. Yeah. Tennessee is quite an interesting place, I think. It's been a bit frustrating if I'm honest. For a family like ours, it's something that we're just sort of like, is this our, how long are we gonna dig in and put up with it in a way? So I've just really tried to stay kind of as active as I can with everything else going on in terms of, showing up and supporting communities that are really struggling here right now. So that's kind of been at the forefront for us a little bit. But there are so many great things about our community here in Nashville that I really treasure. I feel like, I've grown so much musically, I've grown so much in my songwriting, and I'm just so grateful for all the musicians and the people that I do know that inspire me and that encourage and support me. I don't know that if we had stayed in LA, if I would have really had that kind of closeness and community with people. So for that, that is a huge win for me here. And also, we love our home. We have space. We have just access to downtown easily, and my son has a great school, and we're just sort of in a good place in that way right now.
Hmm.
That also would be hard to replicate, I think, somewhere else, especially if we, were to return to Los Angeles. I don't know that again that we would really enjoy the kind of amenities that we have here in this way. So it's sort of a, you know,
We have friends in Querétaro, Mexico, where we live, who moved from LA, and I don't know where you were, but wow, they have really they're living on a complete opposite spectrum here. It was kind of rough. They were working in the entertainment industry too, like in film and TV,
hmm
and now they live in this insanely beautiful high-rise apartment with an insanely beautiful view for almost nothing.
in
And
Mexico.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
it's really it's was something to hear over time, the stories that they had there.
Right.
But I know I have a I'm, I probably shared this with you last time we spoke, but I have a younger brother who lives in Nashville with his wife, and she's like the state controller of Tennessee. She just got promoted, but she's been with the state
Wow.
for a long time. But I mean, it's a nice place to visit. Nashville is, and you sure have a lot of nice restaurants and all the great
We
musicians.
Yeah, we have a lot of great places. Like, yes, it's a great place to come and eat. There's beautiful parks and hiking trails. All of that stuff is very plentiful, and so we definitely take advantage of that as much as we can, and we enjoy that easy access. You don't have to go very far from downtown Nashville to really be feel like you're away.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's something else that we really enjoy here.
Yeah, and you have wineries not far from you, so that's nice too.
I know all the things. So yeah, there truly is something for everybody. I think here, and I think a testament to how much growth Nashville has enjoyed over the last 10 years since we've been here,
Yeah.
um, is a kind of a testament to that, all the different places people have moved here from,
Hmm.
and how much it's grown. I think has influenced all the different capacities of things to do. So yeah, I think that's a good thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so seems so much like Austin in the middle of Texas. There are really no places in Tennessee like Nashville, and I mean, in Texas, you have San Antonio and Fort Worth and
Hmm.
even Houston to a degree, but but yeah, it's like you're an oasis there of some sort, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, maybe Memphis.
Yeah, sure.
Memphis is sort of has that kind of cool character to it and
Hmm.
history to it and kind of vibe to it, its own vibe. So Chattanooga is actually also
Yeah, okay.
and Knoxville. Haven't spent much time in Knoxville, but we have friends in Chattanooga and we've gone there a fair amount of times, and I really love it. I think it has a great downtown community, great restaurants as well.
Mm.
You're on the river, and it's a really really neat place, and it's just 2-ish hours from Nashville, so it's an easy drive, easy day trip type of thing. Um, and then Knoxville is supposed to have a pretty vibrant arts community as well. My husband spent more time there than I have, but of course you have UT, which is probably the biggest situation in Knoxville. But yeah, I've heard it's really cool.
How far, I mean, yeah, how far is it driving to Knoxville?
Knoxville is about 3.5 hours from
Okay.
Nashville
All right.
east. Hmm.
Well, maybe next time I go to Nashville, I will get my brother and his wife to venture out to Chattanooga with us.
Yeah, it's an easy day trip.
And I tell you what, I need to look up all my friends in Nashville from the podcast, yourself included, so I can try to find you and get together for
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. Please let me know. Absolutely.
Yeah, the trips are always so fast and furious. It's
I
like,
know.
but
Yeah.
hey, I did one time. I got together with a couple of former guests. It was really nice. They just met us at some place close by my brother's house. It was like
Ooh,
some
yeah.
wings bar joint. It
Oh yeah,
was
there's several of those.
same here. It's so weird. Mexico loves its wings.
Absolutely.
It's pretty
Yeah.
funny. Oh, so how long did you and Lauren work on Seasons Change, and what's the story behind it? And did were you involved in production? Tell me more.
We got together for a co-write. This would have been 2023. And it was our first time writing together, and we just were hanging out in her backyard and stuff. And I had brought like a song idea that had a different kind of hook, that sort of had a sentiment around what Seasons Change is about. And so we were just kind of playing around, and it's something that we were both kind of experiencing at the time, where you kind of feel like you're in a plateau in life or in your career, and you're just sort of like stagnant and wondering, how do you get out of that? And is there value in being in that position? Should you be pushing forward and trying to like go against the grain or go against the wind, or do you just stay where you are and sort of see what you can embrace and learn and find in that place? Or is there value in the letting go and just letting the storm come and not trying to run away from it, and maybe even run towards it, and get through it faster? And so we're just in that kind of, both in that kind of place in our careers and everything. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it was inspired from. So we kind of wrote it, and then it's one of those things that kind of both of us put away for a while. Like we just kind of didn't think about it. I think we didn't have, there's a couple of things that we hadn't finished and like really ironed out. We just kind of, oh, we'll get back together and do it. But then Lauren texted me and she said, hey, I'm starting to play out Seasons Change and want to know what you think. And she was going to play some shows with the band, and they're playing around trying different arrangements and stuff. And so like, you know what, I need to revisit that too. And at the time, she was playing it more like we recorded it, like just a slower pace, even slower than the recording, and really kind of drawn out. And I was playing it like it was an up-tempo song for me. And then I started to kind of play around with how she was doing it and really started to like kind of digging into it a little bit more. And so we kind of became on the same wavelength, and it became just a part of my set list and a good part of her set list as well. And then in August last year, we had the opportunity to do a small tour together. And so that was a great opportunity for us to sing it together and do harmonies, and we would trade off gigs, and she would take the lead on one and I would take the lead on other gigs. We kind of switched off that way. And so when we got back, we thought, you know what? That felt really good. We really believe in this song, and why don't we record it as a duet? You know, she's done that before. I haven't. It was my first foray into that. So we got together with the Blue House Band, is kind of a band here that they play a lot together, and you can hire them as a band. And then they also do a live band open mic. Have you heard of that concept where you show up with a song, you give them your charts, they've never heard it before, and they like back you up in the moment? Terrifying. Nice. Yeah. Terrifying, but it's amazing since they're such good musicians. But they also can do music production. And Lauren had played with them, like she'd hired them as her band for different gigs out of town and stuff. So she'd had experience and had done 1 or 2 singles with them. So yeah, we got together with them and kind of ironed it out, and we were definitely in the room and in the process through that whole thing. So
that's cool. And the small tour you mentioned, how many dates was that? Where was it? Kind of close or far? Or?
Yeah, it was. What did we do? It was about 5 or 6 days. We had 4 shows in that time frame, and we started out in Roanoke, went all the way up to Rochester, Massachusetts, and then back down. So we had Roanoke, Pittsburgh, Rochester, Mass, DC, and then we drove back.
Did one or both of you kind of have some presence there of any kind, or were you breaking some new markets with those cities?
For both of us, it was a little bit of new markets for sure. Roanoke, I've played gigs there several times, and we have some friends there. So we did a house concert, and that was from someone, like a friend of a friend. And so she corralled her community, and we were able to have a really nice, intimate evening with those folks. Mm-hmm. And then Pittsburgh was definitely new for us. Rochester was new for us, and that was a concert series my friend Rebecca runs every year called Bennett Farm Concert Series. It's a wonderful day on a beautiful farm of live music. And so that for me was definitely a new market, and DC as well. So I really do want to explore the Northeast a lot more. I love it up there. I went to college up there. And so I would love to get back up there and do more.
Nice.
Everything out of Nashville is a new market for me.
Yeah, that's cool. And was it just the 2 of you, or did you travel or meet up with any guys, have any pickup bands?
No, it's just the 2 of us. At the house concerts, we would try to kind of do like a Nashville Writers Round type of vibe, where we would just be up there together and we could harmonize for each other, and just trade off songs for a couple hours and have an intermission. And yes, that's the approach we took there. And then at the other gigs, we had our respective, 45-minute hour sets.
Cool. Sounds fun.
A lot of fun. A lot of hustle to be places on time. So
yeah, I've been talking to people about writing about, talking on the podcast about touring. I've done very little, basically small things like what you're describing, maybe even smaller, but I just hear and read so much about the economic difficulties of doing them. And, it has become, I guess, an investment in fan base building. But, I repeatedly find reasons to get a little angry about it. I was listening to the Black Keys on on I can't remember, Broken Record.
Hmm.
And it was fairly recent. And those guys, I mean, I know they haven't been doing large tours forever, but they've done some large tours and they still haven't made money on their tours.
No,
Yeah.
really?
Now, I mean, a lot of that is because they've done some things in Europe,
Mm,
which, increases the expenses.
yeah.
But yeah, the interviewer was asking him, a great interviewer, whose name I don't even recall, but he was really asking him some questions about it, like, man, can't you audit that stuff? And I think, I sort of got the impression that they did do that, and it was just so horrifying they didn't really want to talk about it a lot. But so I guess they do okay when they when they tour domestically
Hmm.
in the US under the right situations, but it hasn't always been that way. And I'm just like, how does a band like that, not make money? I don't get it.
That's stressful. Especially as an artist like myself, where you're like, yeah, I think it really, I think it's a mindset shift where it's not your lucrative time, it's your fan base building, it's your chops,
Hmm.
exploring your new music and your live presentation. I don't think that we lost money on that tour.
That's a
We
win,
didn't
man.
make a whole lot thanks to merch. Merch was the saving grace. The gigs really didn't pay. The two of them were house concerts, but we sold a lot of merch, and that's kind of how we were able to, not be in the red a lot, and then be able to kind of split expenses, hotels and things like that. We brought a lot of food with us. We didn't really stop for, buying a lot of things or anything like that. So it was really just gas and kind of places to stay, really. So, and she used like hotel points one time. And so, you piece it together. So,
Yeah. Well, that's great. The merch thing is a recurring theme for artists around this level. And I heard a heartbreaking story, just indirectly, actually. I interviewed a guy named Abe Partridge. He's really interesting. He's been involved in this podcast, which I listened to my first episode. The topic is quite left field for me. He's kind of a guest host or a co-host, not the producer of the podcast. Anyway, the podcast is super nice.
okay.
And the one I listened to was true crime. I don't know. I don't think that's the way it started out, but it's like a second season thing. And their first
Mm.
episode, it was really good. But just as a side note, he was telling a story about being on a tour with another musician who he was, trying to make sure got out of it financially unscathed, and
Mm-hmm.
his SUV got broken into, and all their merch got stolen.
Shit.
I know. I'm like, oh man, that's just,
Dang.
and
What are they going to do with his merch?
that's what he said. And he was like, if you're listening to this, he goes, you probably found out my merch isn't worth anything to you. I forgive
That's so
you.
weird.
I forgive you. If you can give it back to me, it would be amazing,
Yeah.
But
Man.
they lost some gear too, a little bit of gear, I think. But
Mhm.
I was just like, oh my God, that's
That'll
just.
take the wind out of the sails for the minute. Yeah, for sure. That's unfortunate.
I know. I was thinking, well, that's another thing to take inside your hotel room with you, I guess, because that's the one thing you don't want to lose.
I know. Yeah, we were good about taking, our guitars and stuff. And luckily we didn't really have to bring she had like a all-in-one type of PA amp thing, but we usually just brought in our guitars to the hotel room. We didn't bring in our merch, but for future reference. I mean, yeah,
Man,
but there were times that I was like, keeping one eye open and listening for, any shenanigans outside the motel room door.
well, given that it's, I mean, wouldn't have thought of it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I would. I'm kind of that way, a little like I know. I just things happen, and I probably would be the type of person like I'm taking this merch in. Let's take it in, because I mean, if you think about, like you said, that's how you put
Yeah.
put the whole thing together. Without it, it would have been a lot different, much different story anyway. Terrible
Hmm.
story. I haven't talked to him since I learned that. He didn't even tell me on the. We just didn't. It just so happened we didn't broach the
Yeah.
subject, I guess. But we were
Yeah.
talking about, by the way, I'm curious for your thoughts on this because something else I'm just starting to write about is staying healthy on the road. So I don't know how often you tour, how long you tour. You were talking about taking food, which is a great idea. Is that something that has popped in your head in the past or this last time? Do you have things that you make sure to
Yeah.
do?
I mean, that was my first tour. Lauren is much more seasoned at it than I. So we brought like made like sandwiches and things like that, apples and stuff. And so the first like couple of days, you feel like you got this, like you're hydrating, and then you feel like the next few days you're like, oh gosh, like we're stopping all the time if we have to go to the bathroom, and we're really tired now, and so we just like are snacking to stay awake on the road, or that kind of stuff. And so I think we started out with, she had protein shakes with her, and stuff like that. And then you're 7 hours into the drive, you're like, man, I'm hungry and I'll just eat whatever. And I'm tired and I'll just eat whatever just to kind of push through and stuff. And so I found that to be challenging on sort of the second half of the trip, when it was starting to just kind of, wear on me a little bit. And we did try to do like some stretching and, some things in the hotel room, but we would often get in so late and have to leave so early that it was, again, hard to really find good chunks of time to really, center our bodies in that way. So, that's definitely food for thought again for, the next time I would do that, is just sort of plan to maybe stay and do one or like two gigs in a certain place where you can spend time, overnight, not just have to get in the car right away and drive 9 more hours or whatever, that you can actually take that breath, and just be a little more conscious about your physical health and stamina, for seeing it through.
Yeah. You're reminding me, I have a friend who's been here to Mexico and we've done some shows together, and he's been a road dog for a long time, and he just really pushes it hard. And he's not a kid anymore either.
Mm.
And I know he's trying to take care of himself. He does a pretty good job. One thing I don't think he does well at is like a sleep routine, which is a big deal. But so he burns it pretty hard at both, the candle at both ends, so to speak. But yeah, I was wondering, just to go down this rabbit hole with you for a second to get your thoughts. But
Mm-hmm.
so you took food, great. I was thinking like, okay, so every town has some semblance of a produce market, maybe even like a fancy farmer's market, maybe if you're really lucky, but like trying to identify through community, like asking people where those things are at before you go, just so you can like,
Sure.
grab a couple things. And you gave me an idea I hadn't thought of, which, it might be helpful, but like when you have it planned out, where you're going to stay. There are certain things you can order even from Amazon, I guess, especially from Amazon or wherever, and have it delivered ahead of time,
Oh
or
yeah.
maybe during a time that you're going to be there.
Yeah.
That's food or nutrition or, supplement, whatever, related to your well-being. I guess you could do that if it, obviously if it's in the budget. And the other thing I thought of too was to like all your venues or maybe your house concert hosts is just let them know. This is just on the whole eating thing, but like let them know, hey, one thing that we found about the road is that staying healthy is a challenge, and part of the challenge is eating well. So if are there any options, if it's like a venue especially or something, or if somebody's offering to feed you, like if there are any options for doing healthy fare, that would be amazing. Let me know what I can do. And I think that, the typical venue that's offering nothing but fried food, they might go out of their way to try and do something for you,
Yeah.
They might.
That's actually a great idea. It makes a lot of sense. I think that slowing down and taking time to eat at those things is also can be a challenge, but that makes a lot of sense. And I think like at the first house concert, which was our first stop, they had a good, they had like a crudite and like the hummus situation, that I felt like was better than the dessert table or the other like, things that they had going on. So I tried to kind of lean into that a little more. And then Pittsburgh, it was a winery, Pittsburgh Winery, and it included a meal, but it was like pizza and like things that, we were going to have to like load up the car and like drive 6 more hours or whatever right after the gig. So it was that food that would kind of just like slow you down a little bit. And I don't think I really ate anything, to be honest. Maybe a couple bites of something, just because we were in such a hurry to like get the
Hmm.
gig done and then get the car loaded up and get on the road again, that it was like there just wasn't any time to kind of take time for that,
Yeah. Honestly, I can't even eat at gigs.
It's
And
hard if you're nervous, especially, or you're just thinking about a lot of things, or you just don't want to be too full or burping. I don't know. There's a lot to think about.
totally,
So,
I'm almost always singing, and it doesn't matter if I'm sitting on the drum set singing or I'm singing in front. It's just like I don't need to be feeling weird or like, yeah, whatever, indigestion or any of that.
exactly.
But I'm all about like, not always, but like a lot of times I'll be like, I'll take it to go, you know. I could see on the
Yeah.
road where that might be okay, like, okay, so it's pizza, but I'm pretty hungry. So,
Yeah.
and then the last thing that I was planning to write about is just, well, it's not the only thing, of course, this thing about like, just trying to have some mindfulness time in your life on the
Mm,
road. Maybe even a more of a priority in my head is like just a little bit of time to exercise with some regularity. And it doesn't
yeah.
have to be a lot. I mean, I know a lot, I assume a lot of people feel like if I can't get an hour in somewhere, maybe at a gym, I'm not doing anything, but which I don't think is
I'm
true.
guilty of that. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, I
I'm,
just don't think it's true. I think moving
yeah.
around and even I think with a hotel gym, if you have one, I mean, I think in 20 minutes, if you don't go in there, as one of my trainers said when I was a kid, and you don't lollygag, you can get a lot done. So,
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty. I'm doing better at that now. And I'm incorporating more yoga into my routine, doctor's orders type of thing. And my husband's always done a lot of yoga, but I'm always like, I don't feel like I'm getting a workout. It's so, but he's like, there's so many benefits you don't realize that you're getting, from that. And even just the mindfulness part of it, that is really good for you. So I'm starting to change my thinking around that. But yes, typically I've been like, if I'm not like crawling, dying on the floor, or like I haven't lifted something heavy and squatted, 200 times, that it wasn't a quality workout. So, but these days I really only have like 10 to 20, 25 minutes, 30 if I is my long workout at this point in time to really do something. And so I choose like focus areas,
mhm.
and I think that's what we did a little bit of, especially like at when we did stop at rest stops or gas stations, like doing just some jumping jacks and some stretching and just, that kind of
Yeah, we're
stuff.
out at
But
like a public rest stop doing
so
jumping jacks.
ridiculous.
Well, you got to do what you got to do. No,
I
I think the
know.
yoga, your husband's right, your doctor's right, man. The yoga thing, I've done yoga forever, but I've kind of slacked, in more recent
Yeah.
years. And I've had feels like a slew of health challenges in the last,
Oh,
I
I'm
don't know,
sorry.
2, 3 years. And I was reminded how great yoga is just for like, you just forget all the things it can
Mm,
help with. So I
yeah.
think it's totally good. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea. Yeah, I'm going to try to provide these, I don't know, for some people, I know this will really work for them, but these little resources, sort of like checklists and planners for, eating and exercising and mindfulness and just sort of planning their whole tour to build in a little bit of time so that they're not,
Yeah.
exhausted. So we'll see
Yeah.
how it goes.
I mean, YouTube has great resources for any time limit of workout,
Yeah.
any type of workout. If you have 5 minutes and you want to do Tabata or like, a hit workout, like there's just something for everybody at every age, at every stage. And
Hmm.
so, that's pretty much, I don't join gyms anymore because I'm like, if I'm not going to do it in my living room, I'm not going to drive to do it. So I've stopped paying for gym memberships until I'm like consistent, so YouTube is really my gym now,
Yeah.
and for yoga or for other types of workouts and stuff. So, and that's something that obviously as a musician you can do anywhere and take on the road. So
Yep. I love YouTube, and I'm kind of laughing because one thing I discovered about like checking out these new kind of workout things on YouTube, I was reminded that, oh, there's a lot of people out there who can help you hurt yourself very easily because
this
of
is
maybe,
true. You do have to be careful.
yes. Yeah, and not necessarily because you overdid it, but they might be doing some exercises that like you didn't need to be doing that.
Yeah, you got to know your body and know your
Hmm.
your limits and modifications, or
Hmm.
just don't do something if you don't know a modification and it just doesn't feel like I have really loose like knee joints, and pretty severely dislocated my knee last week.
Oh no.
I haven't like seeing the orthopedist next week and stuff. And like I had been up to that point, like in my workout routines, I've been incorporating yoga. I've been feeling really good and
Hmm.
much looser in my joint, like looser in my muscles and stuff, and in a good way, in a more
Hmm.
flexible way. And then that happened, just getting out of a chair. And I was like, you know what? come on, you can't win for losing. I'm like finally really leaning into all of this. And now I have to stop until I figure out, how not to take my body apart when I do it. And I'm always really careful, um, about what I do with my knees and my legs and squatting down and kneeling down and all that stuff. I
Yeah.
know. So I was just sort of really like, dang, man, you
Yeah,
know?
that's a good reminder, though, because one thing I mean, I'm very familiar with what you're talking about, and I think one thing we have to remember, as long as our bodies are still allowing us to exercise with any sort of zeal, we're gonna get hurt once in a while. And sometimes it'll be between the workouts doing something stupid that you wouldn't expect to get
Stupid.
hurt doing.
Yeah.
So, oh well. Well, thanks. That's nice, nice feedback and sharing stuff. So, getting back to working with Lauren Anderson,
Mm.
is the first time you collaborated with someone to that degree?
Yeah, I mean, I've co-written with people, but I've never recorded something, co-written and then recorded something together, as a duet. And that was really interesting because we're very different singers. I don't know if you could tell that in
Yeah,
listening
yeah,
to the
totally.
song. She's like a blues rock, real like big, boomy, raspy, that kind of thing. And I'm very different, but somehow together I feel like it works really well. But it was interesting, just dynamic wise in the studio. Just I'm sure for the engineer as well, just trying to figure out how to really balance out our voices, was something we had to work through in the mixes
Hmm.
for sure. But also figuring out, since we most of the time had been singing it, solo, like on our own at respective gigs and stuff, figuring out how we were going to combine, the different parts of the song, who was going to sing what and where and when. We went through a solid number of versions of, lyric sheets highlighted in different ways, trying to remember and figure out who's going to sing where and who, feeling that kind of balance of time that you're, the lead in the song. So that was could be challenging at times, but I think we have enough respect for each other as artists and want to continue to have a good collaboration relationship that you kind of have to work through those things and oftentimes put your ego aside, and just sort of that compromise has to be there, or else you're not going to serve the song as well, I think. And the project could just become stagnant if you just come to an impasse. I think we worked through that a little bit. We definitely faced that a little bit, but I think that the final version that we got, I think feels really good to both of us. And so, it worked out in the end.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I'll have to listen to some of her stuff on her own because what you described wasn't what I would have necessarily expected. And I was listening to your EP, so I heard you in the duet, and then I was listening to your EP, and it's different, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you two had a great dynamic on the recording, and sounds like you did some good work to figure it out. Were there other, I don't know, like learning lessons or things that you picked up from it that you take to the next time you do it with her or someone else?
Well, I will say one of the other challenges, and it's more now, is that when we sing it together, remembering who sings what.
Uh, yeah.
Like what part are we on? No, I think that really just being open to how a song could start out in a collaboration and where it might end up. I think that's true with any song you might record and going into a recording session. And just knowing it can, again, like I think we talked about this last time, like this is the moment the song sounds this way, but again, it could live in another life. I mean, she had this idea of like, oh, this could be like in a Disney, movie or something, and sort of like it could have these other iterations, which I agree with. It's sort of this is the choice we're making right now. This feels like where we best came together with it, and I think it definitely ended up serving the song really well. I think also going into a collaboration like this, I think I want to do more of it. That's I think what I learned. I really enjoyed it because you also in the promotion of it have double the power and the bandwidth and can play off of each other's. We did content days and sort of were in sync on all of that, even on the artwork and everything that we're doing. We're kind of doing it in a collaboration together, which again, you have to kind of do this dance about and kind of relent sometimes. So it's like I think marriage has prepared you well for these kinds of
Compromise.
things. So you just kind of have to like, yeah. But I think that has also been a great thing, is sort of that cross promotion and that kind of double duty, bringing that to it. It feels not easier, but just better when you're someone else, you're doing it with someone else in this way. I'm really enjoying that. And she's, again, we're good friends aside from being in, music collaborators. And so making music and art with people that you really respect and that you would be friends with outside of it, I think really does help and just makes the process more enjoyable. Yeah.
That's cool. Tell me what your content days look like. And I ask because I'm somebody who's really struggled with the whole content day sort of concept, and I've had a content calendar for the longest time, and I'm
Mm,
kind of occasionally good about going in and putting things in there. I think my final frontier has been to, okay, now you have this stuff, go out there, get in there and schedule some things and go talk to some people and blah blah
yeah.
blah. And I really kind of have always had this classic love hate thing with social, mostly
Mm,
hate, but or resent. I mostly resent it.
yes.
But yeah, tell me what they looked like for you.
They're hilarious. I mean, I don't do them on my own. I only really done them with Lauren, and we did like I think maybe shortly after we wrote the song, we just took 2 hours in a parking lot at an abandoned church and like photographed each other. And
Okay.
then she brought a Bluetooth speaker because she wanted to get some video content for a song she was doing. And I filmed some video content for her in that way. And so those pictures actually, like, I've used them a lot and they've been great, and vice versa. And that was free and it was 2 hours and, we knocked it out. And then for, the photo shoot or like kind of the cover art we were trying to get together for Seasons Change, we were kind of in a bit of a time crunch. And there were two places we were going to kind of rent. There's like, video shoot places, sort of like Airbnb, but for film and television or whatever shoots. So we were going to rent these two places, but in the time we were trying to decide which one, they both got taken on the dates that we could do it. So we're kind of like, I don't know how this is going to go. Then I remembered my son's friend's dad has like this huge greenhouse in their backyard, essentially. And he's going to be he was going to be out of town. And so he let us use his greenhouse. And so, everything was dead and dormant. I think it was snowing and like 20 degrees outside. But we got a third girl that Lauren knows to film us and to take pictures of us, and we did the same for her. So it was that bartering relationship where we had no money, no budget. I think it was $10 because I bought some flowers to like zhuzh up the dead stuff, and just that, again, in sync with other people and how can this be mutually beneficial. And so we knocked it out in a couple of hours. We were freezing, but we got the shots that we needed, to have options for the cover art. And then we went home and both worked on different mock-ups for that, and just texting things back and forth. And then we just came to, an agreement on what we thought looked best and sent it off. And that was sort of a 48-hour get it together situation. And we laughed a lot and we had a good time. And, we're good at getting like taking an hour or two and just getting focused and just coming to it with a bit of an idea of what you want to capture, the things you want to tackle or something like that, that way you're not wasting time wherever you are, just going like, oh, I don't know what to do. What should I do? Like having some sort of direction going into it can make the time really efficient. And again, when you have other people that can maybe be on the other side of things for you, and you're not just there like, I feel like an idiot by yourself. I'm
Mhm.
less likely to go to a park and sing out, by myself or take pictures of myself than I am with someone else.
Mhm.
I find that to be a lot less painful because, again, I'm with you. Like I struggle on my own with focused content or like really intentional content
Yeah.
that isn't around like a show promotion or something like that. She balances it out a little bit, but just having someone else that kind of, hey, let's just get her done, like we don't love this. It's not our favorite thing to do, but we have to do it. And just having that camaraderie really does help. I find that it really does help.
So did you find things from that you can take into your solo silo and apply to your own content strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I just need to, and I've been meaning to do this, it's just sort of for myself, just take those 1 or 2 hours and just boom, 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 hit things that I could release, at different points in time that aren't show specific or aren't release specific, but just sort of are life specific, life things going on, or just general when I'm rehearsing on my own, or, things like that, that I always think people don't care about, but apparently these are things people want to see,
Hmm.
is the unpolished stuff. And I'm such a perfectionist and I'm like, but apparently people want to see the cracks showing, and they want to see, the vulnerability in that way, and the candidness of your life, and how you go about your days and stuff. So I need to be just more mindful of that in those moments where I'm like, let me just get, 10 seconds of something. It's hard because I'm trying to also stay present more often in my life, and not just think of it about how this could translate into content or promotion. Like, I just don't like living that way.
Yeah,
I really don't.
I get
But
you.
I recognize that, I'm in a business that at this point in time just requires, that on some level. And I just need to lean into that a little more, and remember those moments that I could capture something, easily if I'm at a rehearsal, or just out or whatever. So
Maybe that's something, that last point is something we have to think ahead about too, that like, oh, I'm going to do this thing with some people today, and this would be a good place for me to do some photos or ask for some help with something or whatever it is, instead of, trying to be spontaneous with it all the time or just constantly be thinking of it.
yeah.
But maybe if we think like, hey, this is the day I'm going to do some of that, and I bet I can enlist a little help from someone, and that might make it easier. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. And Lauren is very good at that. She doesn't love it either, but she's like, all right, I guess we should get a selfie. Or like, all right, I guess we should just film a little thing. And I'm like, okay. So oftentimes she's doing it on her phone, and she's just like airdropping it to me.
That's great. And so, how long have you been married? Yeah, how long?
Oh, I've been married. It'll be 21 years in
Wow.
September.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, you've
Yeah.
learned. Yeah, I heard you say, marriage prepared you for, I think it was the collaborative aspect that we were talking about
And
that.
I'm married to a creative person. He's not in music at all, but he's a creative person. And so, yeah, I'm just used to that
What does he do?
brain. So he is an artisan jewelry maker.
Wow.
He has his most of his career has been, before he moved to Nashville, was in apparel design.
Wow.
But we moved here and there really wasn't a market for that skill set. So he kind of had to pivot and started making jewelry. And so now he makes beautiful things, and he sculpts in precious metal clay and set
Wow.
stones and things like that. So yeah,
No, that's cool. Yeah,
yeah.
nice to be with someone like that. Or I don't know, maybe you're too much alike.
We're both Pisces. Actually, our whole household is Pisces. Our
That's funny.
birthdays are 8 days apart, all of us.
That's funny. I think you kind of talked about this, but maybe I didn't really ask too many questions. And tell me if you were really talking about the same. I think that when you mentioned the theme behind Seasons Change, you may have also been referring to something I believe you wrote, which is embracing and even chasing down the inevitable challenges while in pursuit of something better for yourself. Was that all kind
Yeah.
of part of the same theme?
It is, yeah. I mean, I had heard or learned that in a storm that buffaloes will charge the storm while other animals will run away,
No
and
kidding.
as a result they get through it faster. And so I just think that's a beautiful metaphor for how we could also face challenge and adversity and obstacles, is sort of not running away from that, or just trying to like ignore it or something, because it never goes away. You at some point have to face those hard things. And so, what would it look like to just sort of say, hey, it is freaking raining. Let me just open my arms and like embrace it and dance in it and run in it. And what can I learn through that, through being in the trenches of that, as opposed to how can I put it away for as long as possible and ignore it and not, because those things never go away. But also when you're in pursuit of something like a musical career or a creative endeavor or anything you're trying to achieve, there are going to be times where you are having momentum, and times when it feels like you're taking steps back or you're just not getting anywhere. But that doesn't always last, again, because it ebbs and flows, and sometimes you'll feel. So that's where we kind of brought in that concept of seasons change. Like, if it's not, you don't feel like it's your season right now, just hang tight and wait, and there's some beauty in the waiting.
I like that. And you're so right about leading with the metaphor there of the buffalo. I didn't know that, but it was quickly reflecting on a couple of very challenging in my own head things, and just making a decision to confront them
Mm-hmm.
uh, just takes a lot of weight off of your your psyche, doesn't it? Because otherwise, you just you put it off, and it just festers, makes you
Yeah, and then
crazy.
the anxiety kind of just creeps up. It will manifest, even if you're not dealing with it, it will manifest in some way.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just think it's a good practice to challenge yourself to embrace it and see maybe it's not that bad.
Mm,
Maybe what you were so scared of is actually not that scary. Who knows? But and maybe it is, but I think that just give it time.
yeah, I think I've subconsciously figured out if I lose a little sleep, as in I'm literally thinking about it in the middle of the night or the morning, it's time to go ahead and confront it because I'm just getting,
Amen.
like, okay, this is
Yeah,
ridiculous, right?
yeah, exactly.
So,
It's a hard life lesson. It really is, but it
mm,
is, I think it's an ongoing practice. It's not something I think anyone ever really arrives to because different challenges have different levels. But it's a practice, I think.
kind of like meditating, it's like when you ruminate and lose sleep over it, it's like you've lost focus, and then when you make a decision to do something about it, you're like, okay, I'm back on again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Wow. So, on that theme, something I thought to ask, see where it goes. Maybe nowhere. But what scares you
Okay.
these days?
Oh, everything.
I know it's a loaded question today, isn't it?
Just like leaving the house scares me. Drivers are crazy here. And like it just there's so many things in the world that are just like all the time. And I'm a parent of a middle schooler and that terrifies me.
Mm.
He'll be a teenager next year, and it's just like I feel like everything is what is happening. And but at the core of it, I think one thing that really, if I can be vulnerable, one thing that really does scare me is just never having the opportunity to achieve my potential. That really doesn't sit well with me. That really, I feel like that would be just, that scares me a lot.
Well, guess what? I think you're meeting your potential.
Thank you. That's very nice for you to say.
Well, you're here, you're doing the thing, you're living, you
Yeah.
got a child and married 20 some years and collaborating, and you got the whole beautiful voice. And so, yeah, man, there's more ahead, I know, but
Yeah.
you're young too.
I mean, could be younger, could be
Come on,
younger.
you are. Everyone can say that. I love talking to like truly like, I assume you're not in your 20s. Maybe you are. You look really
I'm
good, by
not
the
in
way.
my 20s.
But like, I just love talking to a 20-year-old who says, I feel like I'm late to the party. This is music. And I'm like, oh man, dude.
Lord.
I wish I would have had that thought when I was your age.
I guess that means the party's over for me. I don't know.
No, that's great. Well,
Forget being late. Yeah.
thanks for sharing that. Now you're good, man. I think you're meeting your potential and then some.
Thank you. That's kind of you.
It's great talking with you.
Likewise, I'm glad we were able to reconnect for sure. And please, if you are coming to Nashville, let me know.
I will. You don't know how much I enjoy these conversations, and like the idea of actually getting to meet some of you once in a while is like, oh, this is so going to be so amazing, and always has been in the few times that I've done
Yeah.
it.
Great.
So,
Must do more. Must do more.
yep,
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
me too. Talk to you soon.
As an independent podcaster, your support means the world to me. You could even say I depend on it. With that in mind, here are some things you can do to help support us. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Or shoot me a review by email, robonzo@unstarvingmusician.com, that I can use on the website. Or just share this episode with a friend. This makes a huge impact on our audience growth. You could also visit our crowd sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn of the many other ways of supporting the podcast, including a quick and easy online tip jar. It's like click, tip, done, easy, and super appreciated. You'll find many ways of showing your support there, including through our affiliate partners like Bandzoogle, Kit, Email, formerly ConvertKit, DreamHost, and others. The music you're hearing is New Gods Part 2, the instrumental mix by yours truly. You can hear the full version, download it, or buy it at
Robonzo.com. And if all this was too much to remember or process, just go to the show notes for this episode at unstarvingmusician.com to find links to all the stuff talked about in this episode. You can leave us feedback, questions, comments, complaints at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. Thanks for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.